Hello and welcome to the 804th meeting of the Economic Club of New York. I'm Barbara Van Allen, President and CEO of the club, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone this afternoon. Before we begin, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the students joining us from Mercy University and Princeton University, as well as members of the 2025 class of fellows, a select group of diverse, rising, next-gen business thought leaders that we have here at the Economic Club. The club is proud to stand as the nation's leading nonpartisan platform for discussions on economic, social, and political matters. For more than a century, the club has been a platform for thought leadership and dialogue. Joining us today as part of the club's author series are Prince Michael of Liechtenstein and Thomas Puschmann to discuss their new co-authored book, Financial System 2030, which explores the future of global finance and the innovations shaping it. Prince Michael is Executive Chairman of Industry and Finance Trust Company, Ltd., a leading firm specializing in long-term, multi-generational preservation of wealth, family values, and businesses. He's also the founder and chairman of Geopolitical Intelligence Services, publisher of The Pragmatic, and co-founder of DuckBucks, Future of Finance, the International Institute of Longevity, and the Longevity Center. Prince Michael holds a master's degree in business administration from the Vienna University of Economics and Business. He previously worked at Nestlé SA in controlling, marketing, and management across Europe and Africa. He's a member of STEP and serves as chairman of the European Center of Austrian Economics Foundation in Vaduz. Thomas Puschmann is founder and executive director of the Global Center for Sustainable Digital Finance at Stanford University in partnership with the University of Zurich. He's also a professor of the University of the Fraser Valley in Canada and founder and managing director of the Swiss FinTech Innovation Lab at the University of Zurich. He co-founded the Swiss Green FinTech Network, the Swiss FinTech Innovations, and Extreme Tech Challenge Switzerland. Thomas is co-publisher of DuckBucks, Future of Finance, and editor-in-chief of the Springer book series on financial innovation and technology. He was previously head of a digital finance research center at the University of St. Gallen and was a visiting scholar at Stanford at MIT Sloan. Today's program will be a fireside chat. We're honored to have club member Peter Coy, freelance economics journalist and former contributor to the New York Times and Bloomberg Businessweek. In addition, we'll be using the chat box for this conversation, and you can enter questions directly into the chat box for their consideration, time permitting. As a reminder, this discussion is on the record, and we will end promptly at 12:45. Now, without further ado, I'm happy to pass this time over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Barbara. I am eager to hear your questions, you members of the audience. So please put your questions in the chat box. Don't wait till the end, and we will tackle them as they come in. So thank you both for doing this, and I'll jump right in by asking you how the book came about. From what I read, it grew out of some seminars that you hosted with some very, very high-level people in the field of the future of finance. Can you talk about that series and how it turned into this book?
Actually, it was quite a number of years ago that Thomas Puschmann and myself, we were talking about where is the financial system going to? Where are we going? We had this situation, the global financial debt, the money inefficiencies in the financial sector, but also disruptions which are happening on political, social, economic, and mainly the technology sector. And then we said, actually, we should he developed the idea to do these round tables, let's say 20 to 20, maximum 25 people, interdisciplinary from technology, from academics, from regulations, from central banks, etc., around and doing over 2 days, 4 to 5 sessions with a specific theme and monitor. So we did the first one. This was was it 2008, 19? 2019. And we then saw that, and we liked the outcome. And I think the persons also who participated liked the session and the outcome. So we decided to continue this system. And I think I would now leave it to Professor Thomas Puschmann to lead further into that.
Yeah, thank you, Prince Michael. Yeah, I still remember our meeting, which we had at the East Economic Forum. That was already back in 2017, which was in the Karpacz region of Poland. It was probably what you would call the East Economic Forum compared to the World Economic Forum, where the Eastern region people were meeting there. And that's right. We discovered that there might be a potential for the future out of these tremendous developments that we saw, especially through the technology that was evolving very, very fast. And we said, let's put together a forward-looking group of people consisting of incumbents like central bankers, policymakers, regulators, but also some startup entrepreneurs, some visionary thinkers that are not so established in the old traditional system. And I think that gave us the opportunity to discuss things really out of the box in a very neutral and free environment. And that's what we also saw then, and is also a phrase in our book where we say there were some people see different pathways for different ways how the financial system can develop in the future. And so we had like 100 individuals over that time now since then. Just in March, we had the 13th roundtable held in Liechtenstein. And so we will continue this discussion, which I think is really good. It's not only about bringing people together, but it's really about also discussing future scenarios. Also, some results were developed out of that led into certain projects. So I think it's a quite interesting group.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right into what you found, what's in the book, and your current thinking. There's a sentence in the book where you said, we learned that the different views do not always overlap and might hold the potential to take different directions. So can you give me in broad strokes what some of the different directions that finance could go in might be?
Dr. Puschmann, you want me? Should I start?
Why don't you start? Sure. Yeah.
Please do.
Good. Let me start. I think we are going, and it is very difficult. We are going into a little bit into an unknown because, you know, the financial system, but the basic is that it is around how you keep and you transfer money in general. But then there are a lot of facets in there which are influenced quite a lot by, in the past, by society, by changes in the economy, by political changes. This all had influences. But today also, a very big factor comes from technology. And there was also the factor is, how do we get that everybody has access to it? Because there are still large regions in the world where people have little access to financial services. And I think it should be quite inclusive for everybody.
Okay. Well, you have in your final chapter, your outlook chapter, you talk about sort of four visions for finance. You talk about repositioning, maturity, globalization, and sustainability. So how would you say, are these mutually exclusive or could they overlap? What decisions, I know the big question I'm asking you is a very fundamental question. Which way do you actually think it's most likely to go, and what are some other ways it might go if that turns out not to be right?
Should I?
Yes,
try
please.
to
This one, yeah.
give an
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
So I think let me briefly explain what we mean by that repositioning. So some people in these roundtables said, of course, a central bank will always be a central bank, right? Um, well, we can take this for given, but we can also say, does it always have to be a central bank around in maybe not in 2030, but maybe in 2040? Is that still true? Because we have so many technological developments, especially if you look into decentralized finance and digital assets, where you could also think of a world that could theoretically exist without central banks. So if you think of the unbundling of money for the four essential functions of money as a store of value, a medium of exchange, then you can see in some parts of the world that Bitcoin, for example, provides certain functions better than fiat currencies do that are issued by central banks. El Salvador is an example, or others. So you really have to think about it in a different way because the technology enables to provide services in a fundamentally different way than we can think of it. So the question is, repositioning within the financial system means then also how the incumbent actors and these new evolving ones will position in this emerging world. I think that's an important point here. So there might be not one path for the future, if you take that example, but there might be different ones depending on the country that you live in. And so I think that's a very important outcome. Also, if you talk about globalization, we've also seen that regulation takes different paths in different countries. Aligning regulations and policy making across different jurisdictions has proven to be very difficult, I would say. So it's not very simple to align that. Especially given the current geopolitical discussions that we have. So I think that is very important to understand, and that was a very important outcome. So different pathways depending on how you look at it.
Again, I want to urge people who are watching this to throw your questions in. And I want to ask now a question sort of on behalf of the people who I think are probably watching this right now. Probably a lot of people in finance, probably a lot of Americans, maybe New Yorkers who work for a big bank, for example. Do you have any particular things to tell them? Let's say I work for a large New York-based international bank. What should I know that your book could teach me?
Well, I think I think it's such a disruption we are going through. As I talked before, in politics, in business, in economics, in finances, that all we know is we will have a lot of changes. And I think what one has to be, and unfortunately I can't give any clear predictions. The only prediction I can make that there will be a lot of changes. And we are seeing also the changes in the financial systems are starting to get speed. We have players which are disappear. We have new ideas coming up. We have regulators. Some of them are basically supporting and helping to develop new strategies. Other regulators are rather blocking that. So we have all these influences. So actually, if you want to make career or put it up now, you have to be pretty flexible.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Prince Michael, I think in your bio, you're a member of the Austrian School of Economics. Is that fair to say?
Yes, well, I'm quite interested in that, and there is also that there are two ideas which are interesting for me. There's first the idea of Hayek to have also private money competing with the fiat money of central banks to improve the system. And the second thing, which I think is quite interesting, is through new technologies, decentralized systems can replace the institutions to give confidence. And Dr. Puschmann already touched it before, that actually certain decentralized system can replace central bank money.
So the two of you think that is a possibility, and is it something you would favor?
Dr. Bush, you want to take that? I know what my answer is.
Well, I don't think that it is a good idea to have private money over public money, because we've seen what that means, what the impact of this is, right?
Can you elaborate on that? What is it? What have you seen that gives you pause?
Well, if you look into history, then you will see that there were many forms of privately issued money, and it was always hard to have an exchange rate calculated, and it's all about trust, right? If people don't trust it anymore, it's very hard. That's exactly the situation we have right now with the US dollar, which loses also value because people don't trust in it anymore in that way. So I think we've seen that a lot, and that was exactly what Prince Michael said about Hayek's idea of public and private money. However, it turns out that really, and that's what I touched before, some functions of money can really perform better by private money and by digital forms of money than that was possible before. So I think there is a momentum here for stable coins, for example. Just a recent discussion we have now, right? So the possibility that you have a digital currency that is packed to a fiat currency but can be used, distributed, and consumed globally is something we didn't have before. So I think that's a development, and there's just only one that is happening now.
But the stable coins that exist today are considered to be stable with respect to some fiat currency or a basket. There's no stable coin that is just off on its own, right? That's not
right.
gets its stability from some other source.
Yes.
But they, as you said, they can be helpful in transacting.
I think if you look at some example, if you, for example, take cross border payments, right? That is still a very burdensome and also very cost intensive process. So if you want to move money from one country to another, it can take weeks. It costs you a lot of money. So these are examples of activities that can really perform better by stablecoins, for example.
Yeah.
There are a lot more. And you asked that question before, and I just want to also add to what Prince Michael said, what the impact is, what people can learn from the banking sector. I think one thing that we've learned is that technology and the convergence of these different technology has really an impact on the industry. If you think that the whole industry is really a very early adopter of blockchains, of AI, of quantum computing, because it's an information business, right? It's purely digital by definition. And I think that puts it in a position that poses it some challenges, but also some potentials, of course. So if you think of AI and the recent discussions about AI agents, I think that's also very interesting because theoretically you can say all processes in finance in the banking sector can be performed by any AI agents. Do we really need a client advisor anymore? Do we really need any people working in the back office doing research for M&A transactions? And we've really seen that also at the roundtable, examples of that, where AI agents were performing very well and putting together slide decks in seconds or in a fraction of seconds. So that was a job that people really did in the past, and it took them weeks. So I think there is a great potential here, and there is a real disruption going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very good, and I touched it before shortly, in areas where the banking system is not really developed, like in many parts of Africa. Most people don't have access there to the financial system. And these decentralized solutions, together with stable coins, makes it very easy for them.
Right. Yeah, one of the points you make in the book is that Africa and some places with less developed financial systems have the potential to leapfrog. And the most advanced countries, the United States, for example, Britain, and so on, have their banks have extremely complicated back office systems because of mergers and old bits of software from decades ago. So it's maybe a little harder for them to move. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. There you are in a new land. You start from scratch. That's always sometimes easier to build a factory from scratch than taking over an old steel mill and trying to modernize.
Yeah. What advice would you give to, say, a young person now who's considering a career in finance? Where are the opportunities, and what are the things they should watch out for because the jobs might be disappearing soon?
If I may, so what we've observed after the financial crisis was a very big hype about these fintech startups. And since then, they really outperformed almost every other sector, right? If you look into certain countries, or if you look at the numbers, so 20% of all unicorns globally are within fintech. That's the biggest sector in this startup domain. If you look at unicorns specifically, so it's a very it was a very exceptional development there. However, there was also a decline over the past 2 years that was connected with the general decline in startup and venture capital funding. But I still believe that there is a huge potential there. So if you are smart enough and want to do something new, you still decide for one of these startups in AI or in blockchain or whatever. But there is also the traditional career still there, right? You can still join one of the big banks there and say, "That's my world." I think they will still employ a large portion of the people. However, the workforce in the startup community in the fintech sector is still growing.
But isn't it true that the big banks are going to have to do some of the stuff the fintechs are trying to do? So they're going to have to develop in-house expertise that matches what's happening in the fintech startups.
I would say yes, so they certainly will have to do it, and they will have to adapt to that. But the large organizations are normally a little bit less flexible and less quickly advancing. But I think they will also have to adapt that. They will have to adapt to your system. They have to use AI. They will have, I don't know where the distributed ledger technologies are going to in all things, but I think they will have to use that. They will also have to use tokens for certain things. So I think also the big banks will have to adapt.
So speaking of AI, you brought up AI several times already, and that is such a hot area. It's just changing week by week. There's new stuff going on. Now, I understand the use of AI in writing code, for example, studying protein folding. There's certain areas where it's very clear, reading, X-rays, that kind of thing. What is the way, it's probably more than one, what are the ways in which AI will be important or is important and will be important in finance?
Well, I would say it will be pretty important in the whole questions of research, of analysis, etc., giving these results. I think it will be very important there. I think it will also be very helpful in the whole compliance area. I think that can be very helpful. And I don't know how much in, let's say, the technical way of processing, let's say, payments. I don't know exactly, but maybe Professor Thomas Puschmann knows it better.
Yeah, I think it will touch all areas across the banking, the value chain, right? Be it payments, investments, financing, basically everything. However, of course, if you look at it into a more detailed level, there are certain areas that are really hot, all these chatbots that we are talking about right now. So customer service, customer engagement, which was in former days much handwork that can now be automated. Also, if you look into the back office in risk management, you can do certain kind of real-time risk management that was not possible before. Also in portfolio management. So there are.
Can you elaborate on those just a little bit?
Yeah.
How would that happen? How would the AI help with risk management?
Well, you could, well, the way how you would do it today is basically you have a set of criteria, right, that you align your risks against. However, risks also change. And if you followed the press and media just recently, there were some announcements also how to feed in real-time developments like geopolitical developments and things like that that are really out of news media. So how does that affect it? Also other developments. So if you think of that, not as a more static risk management toolbox, but more of a dynamic one that is really adjusted in real time, I think it becomes a very interesting feature then in the future. And it can also include supply chains, for example, if you think of supply chain finance. If you have all these data, you can include that all in your model and monitor in real time.
Yeah.
So I think there are some very interesting developments on the way that change the way how we do that.
By the way, can you tell us what you do at Stanford? You teach there, right? But what are you teaching, and how has what you taught changed recently?
Yeah. So what we did is we founded what is called this Global Center for Sustainable Digital Finance in 2023. Because we believe that this topic is very important for all areas. It also has a very tight connection to the whole economy, right? So it's not only important for banking and finance, but also for other domains. And we're doing research in the more established things that we already talked about. There is, of course, a great connection to the new School of Sustainability that was established also in that year, that you've probably also heard of. It's a very important pillar. It was established as a new school, aside School of Medicine, Engineering, and so on. So this has been a big event there. Although the political discussions now are a little bit in other directions, we still believe that this is an important domain there.
Yeah. Prince Michael, can you talk about DuckBucks, which is the company the two of you co-founded, what it does and how it came about?
You know, it came about, and it also came out of our roundtables and looking at that. And then we thought it would be interesting to have a digital magazine where different players, experts, people in the different areas of finance give their knowledge to the reader. And we try to have always a certain theme out of each. We make 10 of them a year. Out of each a red line on a certain topic. And we have these experts talking about it because we thought it's actually worthwhile, these things which we use in our roundtables, to open it basically to a broader public, and not only having our white paper twice a year, but really having a magazine where different experts give their opinions, their knowledge, their way of doing it. It came actually, I'm publishing another one, is Geopolitical Intelligence Services. And there we also use simply experts from economy, from politics, etc., people in the practice, who don't do necessarily the research, but who know the things and give a deeper understanding of things. And so we did that with the backpacks also.
So what, if people want to read these publications, how would they find them? Or what if they, and also what if they want to contribute something?
Well, I think they can contact us through the website. It's possible to subscribe to the backpacks. They can always contact us, and then we will see if somebody wants to contribute. Everybody can subscribe if he wants to contribute. We certainly look who he is, etc.
Yeah.
But we are certainly happy to get contributors, don't we?
Sure.
Reminder to the audience of accepting questions in the chat box. Prince Michael, can you also tell me a little bit about geopolitical intelligence services?
You know, this one I've created about 12 years ago with the ideas of giving a little bit better information. The idea was actually that most media has given up the correspondence, and they are getting most of information out of the same sources. And then I thought it would be interesting to have really to put together a network, which is now a few hundred persons, of persons with knowledge in economics, politics, and technology. And the qualifications we have for these people are people who have large experience, who can talk out, who can write out of experience or give the information by experience, and who have also network to get information. And so we publish actually about 200 not too long reports per year on, could be politics in the country, economics, regional way, about the central bank politics. So everything which is basically economics and politics, and comes, and it's genuine information. It's not, let's say, open source research or something, but it's genuine information from professionals.
I want to change direction a little bit here and ask you a little about Liechtenstein. I think I would bet that this is one of the first times the Economic Club of New York has hosted a session by a Prince of Liechtenstein. So tell us a little bit about a principality. You're very small, wedged between Switzerland and Austria, mountainous, known for banking and skiing a bit, but as you were telling me before the session started, also have strong manufacturing. One thing I want to ask you about is that Liechtenstein was always seen as a tax haven, bank secrecy laws and so on. And there was even a scandal in 2008 where Germans were setting up tax shelters in Liechtenstein to avoid paying German taxes. And I believe there was a strong effort since then to straighten that out, and still perceived as a place where you might want to bank, but not to dodge tax laws. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. You know, going to the last, what you said before is all, I agree. And there was a big sort of paradigm change, actually in many European countries in the early 2000s, and it came also here when there was also a trigger by this by this scandal. And now we changed that very quickly. We are now part of the automatic exchange of tax information of different other things. We have to do the banks, the trust companies, the portfolio managers, a full compliance screen. I think we are even more strict when we screen the compliance than any tax inspector. It's because we shouldn't have anything, and the punishments would be quite high because we are supervised by the financial services authorities who audit us for that. So this has changed. Now, we are still seeing, because I think we have a few ways. We have a very stable political system. Then, which also inspires trust that the politics will not get too greedy, is the country doesn't have debt.
It's interesting because Liechtenstein is not only headed by a member of the royal family, but it's not just a ceremonial title, right? The country is actually run by the family, right?
No, it's not run by the family. I think this is wrong. No, it's more than a ceremonial title, but it's run actually by the government. There's a parliament which is elected. It's run the business by the government, but the ruling prince has a certain influence on the population, and it has always seen, because we have also direct democracy, and in the work of the direct democracy, so far people have always voted rather the idea of the prince than of the parliament and the political parties. So, but we have a very stable system, and we don't have this big crisis. We have governments which are changing. We have political parties which are changing in the rule. So, but it's more than a ceremonial title, because also if there is, let's say, a problem, for instance, the government doesn't work anymore because there is a bad situation in the parliament, then the prince can say, listen, either you agree on something, or I will dissolve the parliament and ask for new elections.
Right.
You see, there is sort of a corrective on that, but it's not an absolute monarch. He doesn't run the country.
Got it. Thank you for that explanation. And one thing you didn't mention is the manufacturing is an important thing in Liechtenstein too, right?
Yeah, this is very important, and we are the only country in Europe where still more than 40% of the workforce is in manufacturing.
Yeah.
It's high value added manufacturing. It's maybe something President Trump dreams about.
Say that last part again?
It's maybe something President Trump would dream about.
Dream about getting
manufacturing.
Yeah. Well, make Liechtenstein great again, right?
We are. We don't need
You don't need to be great again. Everything's good. Yeah, yeah. Very high per capita income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have very high, and we have a lot of people who are coming from Switzerland and Austria to work in the country.
Right. Yeah. The tax rates are on the low side, right?
On the modest side, yeah. When you're a taxpayer like me, you will never say it's on the low side. But it's very competitive, and it's very moderate. So we don't have a problem paying these taxes.
Right. Yeah. So what kind of reactions have you gotten to your book? So from maybe some of the participants in your various roundtables, what do they think of the book? What have other people told you about the book?
Well, I think people liked it, but normally, you know, as an author, one doesn't hear too much of the criticism. You can read it something, but I think it was quite highly appreciated, because it touched a very broad things from different perspectives. And it was not actually we the authors, but the authors was a group of about 100 people.
That's right. Yeah. You synthesized what they said and put it into the book. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. Puschmann did a very great job also in putting these things also together, because he's writing these white papers after every of our meetings, which is a very interesting document.
Yeah.
And so this was then put together in the book.
So I want to go back to a question I started with, which is when you're trying to synthesize something, it's not always easy because there's not necessarily a consensus on every question. So how did you deal with cases where you had people just flatly disagreeing with each other? I have to thank Dr. Puschmann this question.
Well, if you sit together over 2 days and discuss things, there is room for discussion, right? So you can have controversial opinions and can discuss them also on over an hour or more. So that ended up really that we sometimes had discussions that went well into the evening, even into the drinks reception. So this was a way how we tried to balance it. It was never the case that we really had like fights where people were fighting with each other. That wasn't the case, but it was a very constructive discussion always, I would say. I don't know how you think about it, Prince Michael, but I still believe it is always a very well balanced.
Yeah, I think on facts, on points, certain people disagreed, but actually we all felt as friends. The atmosphere is pretty good. It goes into the evening, and so one can discuss, and sometimes one can agree on disagreement. And you know, when you talk about the future development, there will be different ideas, and that makes it interesting.
But you're not still doing those roundtables, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
twice a year.
So that there you maybe have some new white papers coming out of that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What if somebody wants to attend? Who do they talk to about that?
They should reach out to us, and then we can see.
Okay, sounds good. So at this point, I'm going to turn the microphone back over to Barbara Van Allen. But before we do, Barbara's going to thank you, but I want to thank you too for a great session. Appreciate your coming on with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This was wonderful and very insightful. And I'm thrilled to hear you're continuing to have your conversations, because the world is, as you said, very dynamic right now. I'm happy to share with our members some of the events that we have coming up. We'll have a conversation with Raj Gupta, who is co-chair of the Board of Advisors at Johns Hopkins Gupta Klinsky India Institute, and of course, well-known former chair and CEO of Roman Haas. That'll be May the 27th, and he'll be having that conversation with our board member, Erica James, who's also the Dean of Wharton Business School. That'll be followed on the 29th. We'll have a webinar with Glenn Hubbard, well, two noted economists, one Glenn Hubbard of Columbia University and the other Larry Summers of Harvard. That's backed by popular demand. We like having them, these very active and noted economists and members of the club at least a couple times a year. So that'll be the 29th of May. And then as we get into June, Dr. Ariana Kugler, she's a member of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve. She'll join us for a luncheon on June the 5th. And then another luncheon will be June the 10th, where we'll learn all about the latest and greatest on the tariffs from Ambassador Jameson Greer, the U.S. trade rep. And then on the 26th of June, we have another author series webinar with a former CIA intelligence officer, Christina Hillsberg. And I must say, we are very much in the process of adding some more events into, believe it or not, the late May, June calendar. So please stay tuned to your calendars as we get closer and closer to these event dates. And before we close, as we always like to do, we want to thank those members of the Centennial Society who joined us today as their generous contributions continue to enable our programming. Again, as a 501c3, those contributions are very important. We would like to now thank everyone for joining us, and particularly, of course, Prince Michael, Tom, and Peter. Many thanks for a great interview. Well done.
Thank you.